Hi, it's Jessica DeMassa with WTF Health. Joining me right now, I have Leah Von Bitter. She is the co-founder and CEO of Ava Science. So it's good to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right, so flash up your wrist so everybody can take a look at the device, like Vanna White style right here. So you guys have a ovulation predictive fertility tracking device. So tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing in this space, because it's different that you guys have a wearable. So talk to me a little bit about the technology that you have currently and how you guys are going as a company.
Absolutely. Well, you already kind of hinted at what it is. So basically, what we found is we basically started a couple of years ago a clinical trial where we realized that we could, with a wearable, measure so many things on the wrist during the night that would actually help us understand when the fertile window happens and when it happens in real time. So what we're doing now is we have a multi-parameter approach that really helps us to detect the fertile window more conveniently and more accurately than anything else.
All right, so I'm familiar with your product, but for those who are not, talk about the parameters that you're tracking. Like, what are you able to discern from a wrist that is far away from other things that can help indicate when somebody is fertile?
Absolutely. So a lot of women are really used to this whole story about temperature. So you know that temperature is changing at some point throughout the menstrual cycle. But the thing is, temperature is actually a really flawed parameter to take. A, you have to take it every morning at the same time, and it's really difficult. And B, it only reacts after the fertile window is over. So it's not, you can use that for the maybe next cycle if the cycles are very regular. So we wanted to fix that by adding additional parameters that might react earlier. So the things that we are measuring on the wrist during the night are pulse rate, heart rate variability, we measure breathing rate, we measure perfusion, and then we also measure skin temperature to confirm the fertile window once.
So wait, does your breathing rate really change when you are going through like a change in your cycle?
Your breathing rate does change when you go for this. Yeah, exactly. And we actually just published on that. So there's a wonderful chart where you can see how all of those parameters are changing. And that's really the fascinating thing. I think no one knew that those things happen, but it really gives us a much more solid signal, and it again allows us to do a real-time detection and not just a confirmation at the end.
What else are you doing with this data? Because I mean, all of the things that you listed, there's a lot of other things that you can figure out from tracking all of that and having that, and having consistent reporting by having this wearable on somebody's wrist. So what other things are you looking for? Are you looking at adjacencies?
Yeah, it's actually so interesting. I mean, we are a medical device, so we are actually one of the only medical device wearables at the moment that you can use for digital biomarkers. So we, at the moment, really feel a little bit like the kids in the candy store, right? We are detecting fertility, but we are also at the moment very much looking at other areas. We're definitely looking at non-hormonal contraception, which is kind of the next logical step for us. But we've also already done first research on pregnancy and on menopause. So those are really the areas that are important to us, because we really think that women's health has been an underfunded area for such a long time, and we feel that digital health can really make a difference there, and already does.
As far as contraception, I want to ask, because you brought it up. I mean, you've seen other companies kind of tiptoe toward that, non-pharmaceutical contraceptive in this way. Are you apprehensive at all?
No, actually, not at all. I very much believe that we are at the very beginning of a huge trend. I mean, if you look at the numbers at the moment, we see in various markets, especially in Europe, we see that women flat out refuse to take hormonal contraception. And again, for us, it's really about choice. Hormonal contraception is the right choice for so many women. But there is also a lot of women that have decided, for different reasons, that they want to try something non-hormonal. And the reality is, you are only fertile for a couple of days, a month. The whole challenge is to know exactly when that is. And so I think we will be offering an additional alternative. It's not going to be a product for everyone. There is a different risk of pregnancy than you would have with a pill. But for that audience, we really want to build another alternative for them.
I mean, talking about your efficacy rates, say a little bit about that, because I mean, I've seen the charts and it's on par with everything else that's already out there, even like the hormonal stuff. So tell me a little bit about your efficacy rates in terms of just being able to be that consistent predictor, even with women with irregular menstrual cycles.
Yes. So I think what's important is we have published our efficacy rates on the fertility side, where we are 89% accurate and can, with that, really show that the product works and helps a lot of people get pregnant. We haven't published on any contraception rates at this point. And I also wouldn't dare to do so because our clinical trials aren't done yet.
Right.
So do we believe it's going to be on par with hormonal contraception? I'm not sure. And that's also I think that should be the future for us. But when we launch, I don't think that's going to be the expectation.
Okay.
And I think we want to be very clear about that. We are, whoever is right now on hormonal contraception and needs that accuracy in their lives, that might not be the product for them.
Okay.
So I don't think our ambition is to be there at the very beginning, and we will communicate that very, very clearly.
That's probably a wise idea.
Yeah.
We've seen some others not be clear about their communications.
Why I'm trying to be very conservative here.
Exactly.
Perfect product for a certain group, probably. And
Wise thing to say. Wise thing to say. Okay, and we don't have the data. So I want to shift gears a little bit, and I want to talk about the business. So you guys closed a big funding round in May of last year, I believe,
Yep.
right? All right. So where are you guys at now? I mean, everybody's always like, well, you lay the framework for your next round after you close the first big one. So how are you guys doing as a company? Give us a sense of the business.
Yeah, I mean, we are actually really excited about the developments we're doing. We really see that there's so much we can do in this space and really change standard of care for women's health. That's where we want to go to. So we're excited about our next steps in contraception, but we're equally excited also about our next steps in pregnancy that we want to do. So we are happily growing at the moment, but especially really focusing on our clinical research at the moment.
Can you say more about the pregnancy product that you're launching or no?
Not much.
Okay.
Not much.
No, but we know it's coming. Okay, and it's in that space, which is very cool.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, good enough. I'll take the twos.
Yeah.
All right. So weigh in for me then broadly on like what's happening in femtech. So I enjoy watching this space, and it's one of those areas that I feel like is having its year this year. Like from the end of like the middle of 2018 to like now, it just seems like we've seen some big rounds closed.
Yeah.
We've seen recently Progeny have their IPO. So tell me, I guess, a little bit from your perspective as somebody who's running a femtech company. Are you feeling the same way? Are you getting approached by more investors, more potential clients? Like, give us a sense of, from your vantage point in the industry, what's happening in femtech?
Yeah, I really think the space is growing up in a way. Like a lot of the companies that are right now the size that we are, they've started with us and more or less at around the same time. Mm-hmm. So now I think from a bunch of fragmented startups, we're all kind of growing up. And we also see that interest changing in terms of, a lot of us have really started direct to consumer, and now here we are at this conference, really mostly now selling to employers and also health systems. So I think the interest level has changed, mm-hmm. and we now see a much more interest from larger organizations than we did before. We also see much more paid in femtech, right? Fertility benefits are becoming a really big thing. Mm-hmm. It becomes like the standard quo for big employers to actually do pay for fertility. And I think our entire space is really benefiting from that shift and from that interest from big organizations. And then at the same time, we do also see big corporates getting into the game, right? We see large clinical studies that Apple has just announced. We see Google potentially acquiring Fitbit. We've had a company that has also recently done things in women's health. So I think we're really growing up, and for me, it's a wonderful sign because we always really wanted this whole space to move and to really, in the end, have better outcomes for women all over the reproductive life, and I think that's really happening now.
We like to hear about big trends and just kind of what your sense is in the market. So as you're going through this maturation of the femtech world, right? I mean, obviously there's growing pains. Can you share with us, what are some of the, because this is like a conversation I feel like I keep having over and over with digital health companies, regardless of which part of digital health they're in, is the conversations we were having 2 years ago are not the conversations that we're having anymore. So, what are some of these, as you guys are partnering with health plans or as you're partnering with hospital systems, as this is becoming a covered benefit for a lot of people through their employer, what new challenges are you facing? Give us a sense of some of the constraints that you're facing now that are maybe different.
I think one thing that is shifting is the stigma around that. I think that's something that we really faced at the very beginning, right? You had like big pharma companies that were in women's health, and then you had those like very small little startups that are doing something, right? And I think now the stigma has definitely changed. The interest is there. It becomes now something that a corporate board has to discuss because it's a really big benefit that they're offering to their employees. So now it really starts to become something that isn't hush something that those startups are doing, but it becomes really a bigger topic. And then I think the other thing is we're all through that change, we're all becoming because we're all growing up. I think what makes that all more important is that we are really on a regulatory path. We are a medical device. We're working very close with the authorities. So I think that's a new perspective on that we have as a company followed from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. So that's always been really important to us. But obviously having rather large health systems, not only on the regulatory side, but also on data security and everything else, I think our entire space has grown up a lot over the last couple of years.
And there's a lot to learn around that stuff. It's a different world. It really is. Okay, wearables. This space all of a sudden is another one where it was like there was a lot of like questions about this. I feel like last year. Yeah, I mean, so like, is this going to go away? Is this going to be replaced by the things that you can do ambiently with 5G or with your phone or whatever? So weigh in for me on the wearable market. How's that? Do you think? I mean, we're standing here right now at Health, and the big rumor around here is that Google is going to buy Fitbit, and everybody's like, I mean, depending on who you ask, it's like, what? Why? And then it's like, no, this is brilliant. That's like an accounting error for Google. So I mean, why wouldn't they just buy that tech? So I mean, right. So weigh in on wearables for me. I mean, as somebody who's got one, is this one of those things that you think the market is going to kind of swing back to more of a being more in favor than being in question?
I think we're starting to see a new area for wearables, and the wearables need to prove that. I think we looked at wearables for a really long time as those wellness devices and step counts, etc. And I do believe that might not go away, but it will not be the main benefit of those wearables anymore. The new area for wearables really is healthcare, and what we're talking about is remote monitoring of patients for completely different use cases. And I think everyone has been talking about this for a while. Fitbit has been talking about it for a while. Apple has been talking for it for a while. And everyone kind of looked at that and was like, yeah, but when are you actually gonna, gonna show us? And meantime, we did, because we already have a medical device now that runs all of those things, and we actually have a clinical indication for our product. And I do believe that's, I mean, I'm very, very hopeful that now those big companies will actually be able to do something with it, because the potential is huge. Monitoring is huge, and we see so many use cases for our own device. And I actually very much hope that those companies will start bringing out wonderful solutions for patients.
Yeah, well, and if Google's on an acquisition spree, I mean,
Very happy where we are right now, but thanks for asking. Very happy.
Leah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to speak with you. I'm a big fan. I really am. I think that, and I love this space. Like I said, I follow it very closely. So it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I'm Jessica Damaso with WTF Health. Thanks for joining us.